Welcome back to the Deliberate Leaders Podcast. I am your host and executive business coach, Allison Dunn. Our topic today is creating a fearless culture. Our guest is Gustavo Razetti. He is the creator of Fearless Culture, which is a workplace consulting firm to help develop purpose-driven organizations. He is also a prolific writer and author of 4 books on culture change. His insights have been featured in the New York Times, Psychology Today, Forbes, Fortune, among others. Gustavo, thank you so much for joining us here today.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
Thank you. I love to kick these off with a deliberate conversation. What would be your number one leadership tip for our listeners today?
The number one, the first thing that comes to mind would be stop trying to be the hero. Many leaders try to be heroic in terms of trying to be either to solve every problem or to always find the solution. What people really need are leaders that are facilitators. So they create the right environment. And as I say, they remove the speed bumps so people can move as fast as possible, but don't try to find the solution. So teach your team how to fish, don't bring them the fish.
Okay. One of my favorite go-to sayings. Do you think naturally as leaders, we want to be the hero and therefore solve and fix everything as opposed to allowing the team to figure it out?
I think there are two things. One is the narrative, the social narrative, and then it's our human desire to feel valued by others. So when it comes to narrative, since, we study Greek history or whatever, there's always been this narrative that the hero let's have a look at superheroes in today's movies. The most watched movies, it's about someone that's going to save the world, have superpowers that can do what any other people can't. And I think that's a problem because not only they weaken other people instead of helping them find the solution, but then they become less self-aware. They think that they have better superpowers and skills that they actually have. So some people don't necessarily want to do that, but I think that it's forced. When it comes, for example, in recruiting, we tend to recruit leaders that are more heroic, that are more extrovert, like the Steve Jobs type of and actually boards, there's research that shows that they get paid much more money than people that are more maybe introvert, even if the introverted, more quiet people are much more effective leaders.
Yeah. I think that's good insights on that. Your area of expertise is helping companies basically design team cultures that lead to a more dynamic and successful team, ultimately resulting in running a better business and hopefully becoming a better leader in some way. Everyone knows that workplace culture is critical for business success, but what do we really mean by that?
That's a good point. Many people think of culture as something that's abstract, hard to grasp, hard to define. But in the end, culture, it's the collection of the emotions, the mindsets, and the behaviors that are happening in the organization. And behaviors are the most important part. Not only what people do, the things we normally do things here, but also what people don't do, the things that people avoid doing or they don't want to do or they're afraid of doing. So in the nutshell, culture is like an amplifier. It magnifies your strategy. There's this saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I don't agree with that. First, because it wasn't, it's assigned to a leader that never said that, Peter Drucker. However, people tend to use it a lot. Culture without a good strategy is not going to take you anywhere. Of course, if you have a good strategy, good product, and a good culture, the culture is going to amplify or accelerate your results.
So I like both of those words, meaning the culture itself is what creates the success, but it's a magnifier of it to amplify your success. How can we make culture more tangible?
Through conversations. And I think this sounds obvious, but I think that we need to turn culture conversations into a dialogue. In most organizations, like for example, when it comes to defining the purpose, the vision, the values, that's something that's top down and people are only involved to be passive listeners and to say, oh yeah, we agree, we're going to buy into that. Our approach is about creating conversation because culture is the result of what leaders want to achieve, but also how people behave. I like to use the analogy of a city. So if you're the mayor, you don't control what people do. You set certain guidelines, right? For example, I'm going to put a traffic light here because there's a lot of traffic, want to avoid accidents. However, if people want to walk, ride a bike, drive, the type of music they're listening, all that stuff are things that people, of course, decide, and the same should happen in organizations. So this a balance between leaders defining the environment, but then letting people choose in which direction they grow, that's how culture should be developed.
Okay. In the work that you do, what are some of the things that I love the fact that you were talking about the city and being the mayor and kind of the structures that you put in place. So let's apply that to a workplace. How can you create or craft or design one? And what are the things that our listeners should be thinking about when they apply it to their own company or a future company?
Fantastic question. I think that, first of all, some people get stuck with the term design because they think that design means controlling, right? But in the end, I always tell my clients, either your culture grows by chance or by design. The
100%.
most successful company cultures have been very intentional. That doesn't mean being prescriptive or directive. It means about setting those guidelines. The first step, to your point, is to map where are you today. Even if you haven't done any work, there's always culture. The moment you have 2 or 3 people interacting, the culture is there. There are certain behaviors, beliefs, values that are in place. So we need to identify what's going on today. And then with that, we can assess what's working, what's not working, and move into what will the future culture look like and what we need to evolve it in that direction.
Okay. I concur with that. I think a lot of people say, well, we don't really focus on culture, but they already have one, whether they realize it or not, for sure. You have a new book that is coming out, and I think it's like one of the largest challenges that we have, at least in the clients that I work with, is that hybrid model of now that we have people who are in the office, out of the office, working from home, working from anywhere. How do you control that culture by design?
The book is already out. Sorry for the thing about being intentional becomes more critical when you're working in a hybrid or remote first environment. However, there are many companies that I talked to and interviewed for the book that really cracked the code about how to do it. The most important thing is about clarity. So clarity about what everyone needs to do, what we're trying to achieve together. So communication is crucial. The other element is balancing freedom with accountability. So giving people flexibility, not only to choose where they want to work from, but also when, so they're to choose their own hours, their own schedule, and also how. But with that freedom comes the responsibility for those team members to deliver. So these companies focus more into the outcome. What's the impact of our work rather than measuring how many hours we work? That's one of the biggest kind of shifts that you need to consider.
Okay. So what would be your guidance to a leader today that maybe wants to improve their current workplace culture based on all these dynamics? What are some of the steps that they can take?
The first step is, once again, going back to the turning this into a dialogue, involve people. So simply questions like, for example, asking people, hey, what's working, what's not working? Okay. For example, reflecting the pandemic created a huge shifts, not only in terms of our personal lives, but also work. So we need to revisit what used to be, what is our culture, how we used to work before the pandemic, what happened during the pandemic, and what needs to happen now. And there are good things from the past that we want to keep. There are good things from the pandemic that we want to add, but there are many things that we want to get rid of. So we need to integrate those to try to project our culture into the future.
Okay. And I think that as like a leader or an owner of a team, like that's a dialogue that I can start if that's my role. What would be your guidance for just a team member who wants to make this more prevalent inside of their workplace? How can they go about it?
I can give you like a tool that we use that is very straightforward and people can download it from our website for free, which is called the washing instructions. So we were taught that you have to treat others the way you want to be treated. And that's completely wrong because each of your team members have different preferences. So research shows that leaders that are early risers think of people that arrive normal hours or even 10 minutes late that are lazy because they are being in the office for 2 hours. So there's a huge misunderstanding. Washing instructions is a template that allows team members to codify how they want to work, what are their preferences, how they want to communicate. For example, don't talk to me before I have my third coffee in the morning, or if I'm in my deep work, don't interrupt me. Or you can reach out to me if you need, I don't know, presentation skills, someone to help you with whatever. Then the magic happens when you can not only share, so you get to understand your colleagues better, but also to find common ground. We have personal preferences, but also as a team, how we want to operate. And that includes communications, how, for example, how much time can we take to answer an email? Should we answer an email immediately, or it's okay to answer within 2 days? Those kind of norms that help teams work better.
Okay. Excellent tip. You use your company name is Fearless Culture. What is, in your experience working with companies, what creates fearlessness or what creates a fearful culture? What's the how do you know when you're in one and how do you make it fearless?
That's a great point. And it's a journey, right? It's not a black and white approach. The point about fear is a very powerful emotion. So it's the sign that something's about to happen, so we need to pay attention. In fearful cultures, fear basically acts not like a signal, but actually like a hindrance in which people are afraid to cross the line, to speak out of time, to contradict their managers, to experiment, to do things differently. So fear limits people's ability to do great work. In a fearless culture, people feel okay to take risks, to screw up, to learn from those mistakes, to experiment new paths, because both their leadership, the culture, and their team members are supportive.
How do you know which one you have? I mean, is it going to be obvious when you're working in one, whether it's fear-driven?
Well, we have tools that we use to assess the culture, but I think that we talk about culture being visible. There are simple tricks that you can take. For example, if you visit someone's office, you want to talk to a senior executive, the leader, the CEO of the company, and if you get that the receptionist is stressed out because she's guiding you the way, that you need to go through 2 or 3 assistants, that people are quiet around, that already can tell you that stuff. Another thing is when you're having we have a stakeholder interview, so maybe we have a group session with the team to see what's going on. And if people, for example, look at their leader or they say, hey, was that okay? They're trying to get kind of approval. That's also a sign. Silence is good because it helps us reflect. But when people are keeping things to themselves, that's a huge sign of fear.
Okay. Good signs and things to look for that you can visually see, because you don't necessarily know when someone is in fear, but you can see the signs. Cool. Your book, which is Remote, Not Distance, Designing a Company Culture That Will Help You Thrive in a Hybrid Workplace. Where can folks pick that up?
It's available in the major online retailers like Target, of course, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and many others. So if they Google it, they're going to be able to find it quickly, and also many bookstores and retailers.
Okay, fantastic. Gustavo, what is the best way for people to find or follow you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. I'm the only Gustavo Razzetti with Z, so it's my complex name. It's a benefit, an advantage in that case. And then if not, they can go to our website, which is fearlessculture.design. It's not .com, but .design, so fearlessculture.design. And as I mentioned, they have a lot of templates, free articles, but also they can contact us directly.
Okay, Fantastic. Gustavo, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Fantastic. Great to see you and great to join your program.
Thank you.